Hi, it's Lucy here, and I have lots of cards to show you today using minimal supplies, which, as you may know if you follow my channel, is what I love to do. These designs will all be masculine or non-girly cards and no themes today. I'll show you how I made each design and then I'll show you all the different versions I made. Today I'm going to use up some old papers. You may even have this paper pad, and I'm going to use these two gorgeous background dies from INLOVEARTS. I have a huge discount code below and we'll mention again later, but first let's get on to creating. And I'm going to use my Sizzix electronic machine and I have a link to it below. You may have background dies that aren't too girly that you can do this with too. I'll die cut the background dies a few times along with some sentiments and sentiment shadows, and that way I'll have lots of different patterns to mix and match in different ways. At times I found my magic mat and background dies weren't cutting all the way through in some areas, so I switched over to my plastic cutting plates and I added a piece of scrap paper and that did the trick. I'm adding my wide double-sided tape directly to the card front, and I don't usually do this and don't recommend it, as you have to be very careful when adding the frame to make sure it's placed perfectly. I recommend adding the tape to a scrap piece of paper, then you can add the frame and cut around it, then adhere it to the card front, and this is much easier, although that sounds like a mouthful. I will show you in one of the other ones. I'll do it on the scrap paper instead. So when die cutting background dies a few times like this, I also recommend when placing them down on your table to have them all facing the correct way. I didn't do this and therefore it was a bit more complicated to say the least. This can often happen when you first use an unfamiliar product. It can be a learning curve even for experienced crafters like me. Many of you tell me you struggle with card designs for males, so let's hope this gives you some ideas today. I also use hexagons to use up the paper in the end too. I don't want to keep any leftovers. I've had this paper pad for years. As well as the paper pad, I had these red and grey papers and I don't even know where they're from anymore. They were in my basket of card making paper pads, so it was time to use them up too. This is my favourite sentiment die set for males, and I love that you can use it for female cards as well. And when I glue them together, I always add an acrylic block to them just to make sure that they're super glued together nicely. I'm just going to doodle around the more solid coloured papers to give them a little added interest. I'll have a product link to these white pens as I've used many over the years, and these ones are by far the best and I don't buy any others now. All the stores I link to in my videos ship internationally too, and using my product links if you want to buy anything really helps support my channel. I somehow forgot that little triangle in the bottom corner there, so I'll add a piece and I'll still give that a little bit of a doodling around as well. And then all I need to do is add a sentiment and the card is done, I think. What do you think? Do you feel like this is a masculine style card? Do you have background dies like this that you can use? They're fun and easy to create. It'd be good to make lots while watching TV or something, I think. With this next one, I'm going to combine all the scraps I have left by mounting the 3 layers together with glue. This is going to give them a bit of additional height so that when they're on the card without the frame, they'll stand out from the card. In my little glue bottle is Sally's Aquadare indoor glue. I think it's for wood mostly, and I get it at a hardware store. I find that this tends to glue everything beautifully. Now all 3 layers have been glued. I'm going to use the die cut frame as a guide on where to add the strips. I'll glue each piece down, making sure I haven't glued down the frame as I go. Again, I made the mistake of adding them straight to the card front. I should have added them to white card, and then I could glue the whole piece to my card front with an even border around the sides. But instead, I've added the strips a little closer to one edge, but once the card is finished, it doesn't really notice, so it's all good. What's your favorite color combination? Do you like this one with the red and the grey? I really like how these colors turned out together. Oh, and I did mention I have a discount code for these background dies. Well, for the INLOVEARTS store, actually. Just add Lucy25 to receive 25% off your order. I receive a small commission too if you use my code or links in the description below. And I recently posted 2 videos using some of their other dies too. They have a large selection. They have their own designers that design their dies too. So this is the finished cards with the red and the grey papers, and I think all 3 of them look nice. What do you think? I only added the pearls to the one card. I didn't feel like the other 2 would have suited them as much, but the one with the black did. So they're all very similar. One has the black background and pearls. The other one has the white doodling around it. And that bottom one is the one where it doesn't have the frame and they're just mounted onto the card. Now on to the next design, and it's using a different background die. I'm not sure how you all feel about background dies, but I'm loving creating with them lately, especially like today where I'm using up some of my old papers. And yeah, I love how the cards turn out. So this is what I was talking about earlier. I've now put my double-sided tape on some scrap paper, and then I can put the frames on here. This way then I can do all the inlaying and then cut around them. I've accidentally put one of the pieces of paper in the wrong spot, so I had to quickly pull it up, and it did make a little bit of a mess, but all I did was re-glue in that spot so that it was sticky again because the tape had some of the paper remnants on it. And then I could reuse it and no one will ever be able to tell that I made a mistake under there. Now I can cut around these and add them to the card fronts, and this makes card making so easy. I'll just add a sentiment again. What are you thinking of these cards so far? I'm going to give most of these cards to the local charity I found recently. Remember in one of my recent videos, I had a bunch of cards that needed a facelift to give others as they were returned when I was trying to send them to an American nursing home. Well, women's shelters are definitely difficult to find, and of course there's a reason for that, so the women and children can be safe. But I did find a local community service centre near me that assists with women's shelters and financially strapped families in crisis support situations. And I was so happy when they were grateful for a box of cards. They even added a photo of me and my cards to their Facebook page. It's the smallest thing I can do, but I'm still happy it's something I can help with, and I will continue thereafter. Thank you cards and Christmas cards. So I'll be making a lot more Christmas cards in coming weeks. And I've made a couple of thank you cards on this video today as well, because I think sometimes we forget that males need thank you cards as well. So with this next card, I'll glue this frame directly onto my card front. I made this card more uniform by adding the pattern to each side so they mirror each other. I haven't glued any down as I wanted to make sure I had them all in the right place before making them permanent. And as it happened, I moved a couple of pieces around as some patterns were duplicates and too close together. I love these patterns with the freshness of the white frame, do you? I love how simply changing the frame colour changes the look of the cards too. With the blue and brown frames, it gives a warmer feel to the cards. I'd love to hear which you prefer once you see them all. You'll see all those style of cards shortly. But I've shown you how I've created those cards using the background dies in a traditional way. And now some of you that know me well by now know I'm going to use some of the scraps to create a different style of card. And I play around with them, and this might be a good design, but I decide on a different one. I've kept this in case you like this idea too though. I have some of the strips left over from when I die cut the frame from craft paper, so this is ideal to use these up rather than throw them away. I have a piece of white card slightly larger than my card front, and I'll place down the strips first, mainly to make sure I like this design and to make sure I have enough strips. Then I can glue them down. I'm not overthinking where the splits are, and in hindsight I probably would next time, but I don't think it matters too much. I'll die cut a stitched rectangle and thanks sentiment, and I'll double up on the sentiment to give it a nice height too. I'll lightly touch the sentiment to some scrap paper to take off any excess glue, and then this card is pretty much finished. The community centre mentioned that they like to send thank you cards to volunteers and companies, so I think cards like this will be perfect where they're not gender specific. So far this is pretty much all the items that I used today, apart from some papers, of which you can use whatever's in your stash. I also used my wide double-sided tape, which is perfect for using with background dies like this. I will have links to everything in the description below if you're interested in any of these products. Here's the other dies I used recently from INLOVEARTS if you're interested in taking a peek at their store. I also have these two beautiful background dies I'll be using soon too. I can't wait to create with them. I'll hopefully be able to list them all with their links below too. So shall we see all the different cards made with just these few items? I've added some glossy accents to this sentiment to help it stand out more. I think it would have looked really nice in white too. As I said before, I love the freshness of the white background cards, but I also like the warmth the browns and the navy brings to the cards too. I've used the negatives of everything for this card background, so basically I used the scraps. This isn't my favourite, but it's a good way to use up the excess die cut pieces. I added foam tape to the sentiment to give it extra height too. I added some white doodling around the frame on this card and onto the sentiment as well, so it could be read easier. I do love the brown frame. This is a muted gold frame, and I have used the same paper for the sentiment shadow too. Oh, and I used glossy accents on this one as well. This is another one using the white frame, and I've used the white sentiment shadow this time as well. I really like how they look when the frame and the sentiment shadow is matching. And here's with the navy blue frame. I can just imagine the sentiment shadow being the same navy paper too. I think that would look great as well. I think I ran out of it. So here's these ones closer up as well. I really do love this sentiment font. It's so cool, isn't it? It's so easy to die cut as well. You know how some of them get stuck and they're a bit fussy. This one is really good. I got it from scrapbook.com. I do have the product link below if you're interested. It is just my favorite. And so here's that thanks card again. And I do have more cards to show because I just didn't stop. I figured I may as well keep going. I wanted to get rid of all of this paper pad here. So now I'm going to do some hexagons. And I couldn't seem to find this hexagon die, but I do have a link to others that are similar below. So hopefully that will help if you don't have any in your stash. I also have a hexagon punch too, and I find that this is nice and easy as well. It's a different size to the other ones, and so I've got 3 different sizes here because this die cuts out 2 different sizes. They're only very slightly different, but they're enough that if I was to try to put them on the same card, I would get into a bit of a mess. It wouldn't be very uniform. So I'm going to roughly cut a piece of paper that's about the same size as my card front, and that way then I can start sticking these down, and I'll die cut them once I've finished into a rectangle to go on the card front. So I'll play around with all the hexagons, making sure I have enough of them and that I don't have any of the same patterns next to each other. Once I'm happy with the placement, I can then go ahead and glue them all down. I've die cut it out with my rectangle die, but you can use a trimmer if you don't have the size you need. I didn't actually die cut it perfectly. I'm not sure if it moved or I placed the die wrong, but this corner is missing a bit of stitching and white card, but I'm going to add it to my card front anyway, and I'll bet we can't see it once the card is finished. Once again, I'll add the sentiment and pop an acrylic block on it while it dries, and I'll show you a card I made with the smaller hexagons while it's drying. Aren't they a fun way to use up papers that you don't love anymore? Or is it just me? I love hexagons. And let's check out this card now it's dried, and can you see the mistake in the corner? I can't really unless I look very hard, so I'm happy with that. And then this card I've created for my daughter to give to my husband for his 50th birthday coming up. I doodled around each hexagon as well, just for something different and to make them stand out more. And then I still had some more of the paper left over, so I decided to create another 3 of these type of cards. These are the ones that before I did in the red and grey, so I decided to try them out with the rest of the paper that's remaining of the paper pad, because I do not want to put it back in my stash. I do like to finish up a paper pad when I actually get the time to sit and create like lots of cards like this. I got into a rhythm with these 3 cards and created them together. I die cut the strips out with 3 pattern papers and layered them on top of each other, so it was easy to pop them all in the same places in each frame. And I made sure the first 3 rows in each frame had all 3 different papers, because then I could go ahead after that just copying the first 3 strips. Once I've finished adding the strips, I'll cut around each frame ready to add to the cards. I'm going to just add the sentiments, and then we'll have a look at the 3 different cards, because when they've got the different frames, they do tend to really look different from each other. I'm using Uniquely Creative's new foam dots and strips. I love these ones as the dots are a little larger than the ones I used to use, but they're the same height. And I found these difficult to find in the past. I'm not sure if you watched my Temu video where I couldn't even take the backing off the dots. That was a total fail. Anyway, I love that thinner style of foam dots best, so I'm really excited that Uniquely Creative have their own now. They do have the thicker style foam dots too if they're your favourites. Oh, I forgot. Here's another card I created using up the last of the papers. I even used some of the scraps to mount the paper onto the front of the card. May as well recycle it, and it always looks nice to have definition between the layers too. I'll choose which sentiment I like the best, and then we'll see all the cards. I promise I'm finished now. So I made 18 cards in total, and here's all the cards I made with this background die and birthday sentiment. They're all slightly different. Most of you have said you want to see mail card ideas, so I'm hoping you all enjoyed this video, and hopefully this has given you some ideas. I'm also hoping it's helped for your father-in-law's birthday cards too. If you don't have this die and aren't interested in buying it, you can always just cut the strips out yourself with a trimmer and still create a similar effect. Just to give you an idea though, this die is $8 US, and with my 25% off code, that brings it down to $6. So they are very affordable, especially as they have free international shipping too. I've had 2 orders from them and they've arrived very quickly to me in Australia. So just in case you're wary of certain companies that you haven't heard of or haven't bought from before, INLOVEARTS is a good one. You've probably seen their ads on social media too. And so these are all the cards that I've made using the other die. I've called this one a diagonal V background die so that you know which one is which in the description below. because I'm just a smaller channel, it's really important that people do connect with me by commenting or liking my videos. Otherwise, I seem to get a little lost in the system. And if you enjoy my videos and don't want to miss out on new ones, please click the notification bell, as my new videos won't always be shown to you otherwise. I'm also interested in your opinion about craft haul videos. Do you want to see what goodies I've chosen from Journal Say? I haven't looked through the box yet, as I'm wondering if you'd like to see everything in it and then have a say on what you'd like to see me create with in upcoming videos. Or would you just prefer to see me create cards using some of the items? I'll of course be creating cards with the products anyway, but I thought if I do a craft haul, those of you that are interested could then comment on which products you'd like to see me create with. So I'd love you to add yes or no in the comments section as to whether you'd be interested in watching me open everything. I won't be able to wait too long though, I know me. I have to have a little peek soon. Don't forget to use the code Lucy25 in the INLOVEARTS store as well. The links to everything are below in the description box. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you in the next one. Happy crafting. Bye for now.